Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why my Biz plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with my Biz plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit Verizon.com/business to get started today. New lines only. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes autopay and paper-free billing and promotional discount. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge. Applicable add-ons, prices, and terms apply. Guarantee applies to base monthly rate and stated discounts only. Add-on prices additional. Offers in January 5th, 2026.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the Aftermath edition of the Falcons Podcast. It is Monday. It is cold. It is dreary. It's a short week. The Falcons can lick their wounds, turn around, and now play a pissed-off Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that has beaten them, well, just once, because the Falcons swept them last year. Falcons played them earlier this year in a game they probably should have won, and the Tampa Bay is hovering around 500. But they're how many times now have they won the NFC South? They're the team to beat still, but it's not going to be the Falcons, I guess. I want to get into some things today, and we're going to say our lows first. That's why we go live. I like having the conversation with y'all. Some of the things that struck me yesterday from the press conference after the fact. We did the gut reaction. Then I go back and watch the press conferences. One of the things that really struck me was, and we want to hold players accountable to a certain extent, but I don't feel like players are necessarily the biggest problem of this team. And Raheem Morris took to blaming players yesterday for special teams woes, for the woes of third downs. He took to blaming players. You know, a lot of times the blaming of players is simply lumped into that keyword of execution. You hear that one, that means the players aren't doing what they're told. He never used that word. He used figure it out and find a way several times. But he turned to blaming the players for all of the problems on special teams. And, I wrote that up yesterday after the fact. I did make a mistake I wanted to correct. If I said yesterday on here that it was 2 weeks in a row with a touchdown return, kickoff return for a touchdown, it wasn't. That the Jets, Isaiah Williams was actually stopped short and they held him to a field goal. But that was right after the Falcons had taken the lead, and that was a turning point in the game. So in my mind, I remembered it as being a killer blow as a touchdown, but that was wrong. It wasn't a touchdown. So yesterday was the first touchdown kickoff return. Made that mistake, got a correction. I want to send a shout out to a thank you for that. We'll get into that. We'll get into Mike McDonald had a couple things to say after the game that you might find interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that too. And let's say hello to some folks as I set the show here this morning. Cashback Beats is here this morning. He says, good morning, and he's got the coffee emoji. I'll drink to that. I got my Lion coffee, and I tell you what, I got this 10% Kona blend that they sent me. Oh, my God, it's the best coffee I've ever had. I feel like I should have like a coffee date. Like, yeah, I got the good stuff. Come on over. Oh boy, what a disaster. I turned it on at 6 to 6 and you could kind of see it coming. I'll get into this one now about what Mike McDonald said. The second question in his press conference yesterday after the game, Is it true you called the Shaheed touchdown at halftime? Maybe. With a smile, he says. Is it true you predicted the kickoff return for touchdown? Well, hell, we could have predicted that. That doesn't make you Nostradamus or the Oracle or anything like that. But he came out and told this team that, you're going to return this for, return this for a touchdown. Predicted it. It's predictable, isn't it? So it's not really going out on a limb there. That's how bad it's been. Admitted to it in the game. Mike Harvey, he came out and he asked me this question privately, and I didn't have an answer for him because I don't know that much about him. But he does, and we can look more into it for sure. And thank you for the super chat and being a member, Mike. He says, I want to put forth a name for GM Ray Agnew, assistant general manager of Detroit. 8th straight losing season, the GM has to go. To be fair, it's only his 5th straight, but I think it still stands. And it's not just the 5th straight. It's the worst one. And he had a hand in hiring Raheem Morris, too, as reported by Ari Mayrov. He had a hand in that hiring, too. So his hands are all over this. And I like to look at the snap counts and see who did what. There were 2 things in the gut reaction. And I call it seat of the pants analytics. I see things and I'm like, okay, was I right on this? I'm not sure. And then you go back and check stats and stuff. And I remember yesterday, and I know a lot of you that were watching yesterday will be watching today, and thank you for that. Love y'all. I said, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of Jalen Walker. Check the snap counts today, and Jalen Walker only had 6 snap counts. No one asked about an injury. No one said anything about an injury. But with the short week, the injury reports, they usually come out on Wednesday for a Sunday game. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 5 days in advance. I imagine we'll get an injury report today. And I can't imagine that Jalen Walker won't be on it. Otherwise, can you think of a reason why Jalen Walker is playing 6 snaps on defense? Well, let's get back to 8th straight losing season as GM. The GM has to go. When we talk about, Terry Fontenot has the supporters. Raheem Morris is out of supporters. There aren't any there. There will be, the vocal minority, not even a minority. There will be a person here or there that says, it doesn't do any good to just start over and make this firing. He needs more time. There's always going to be somebody like that. But for the most part, 90+% are out on Raheem Morris. It's probably 70% versus 30 on Terry Fontenot. But typically the only players who play every snap on offense, you have 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback. So 6, that's pretty standard. So 6 players played every snap on offense. Who played the most snaps that wasn't one of those 6? David Sills. Wide receiver David Sills. No offense to David Sills. I know you're working hard and you've carved out a nice niche in this league, but David Sills played 60 snaps. He played 94% of the snaps on offense. It probably only came out in like a goal line situation was the only time he wasn't in there. 60 snaps. That was more than Kyle Pitts. It's more than Darnell Mooney. That's more than Bijan Robinson. It's more than everybody not on the offensive line or the quarterback. Now, coming into this season, David Sills had 13 career catches in 1, 2, 3, 21, 22, 23, 24, in 4 seasons in the NFL. He's got 8 catches for 65 yards all year. That should be the game. He's played in 13 games. He's got 3 starts. Hell, that should be a game for him on 60 snaps. What was it yesterday? 0 catches on 4 targets, 60 snaps at wide receiver. That's unbelievable. That the wide receiver room has gotten this bad. It's really unbelievable. Now, to be fair to Fontenot, I'm not going to say that in itself is a fireable. It's not, because coming into the season, we thought wide receiver was actually a strength, because last year it was Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod. Then you fire a wide receiver coach. Darnell Mooney's been AWOL all year, and Ray probably popped off and was sent packing. And all of a sudden, wide receivers 2 and 3, you've got wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 are now wide receivers 2, 3, and 4. And when you've got your number 1 out, all of a sudden, wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 become wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. So that's not all on Terry, but it just goes and highlight the lack of depth on this team. The Bryce is wrong. Good to see you. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Appreciate the support. Gear Trail 95. That feels like a newer name, but I feel like I recognize your profile pic in here. Here we go. He goes, Gear Trail. This isn't quite what I was talking about. He says, I've seen people say they want a clean house, and I can't support that only because Ulbrich has done everything he could, but with the offense stalling, they got exhausted. And I actually put that in my 4 takeaways yesterday. It's like, these guys need some help. They had 66 yards through 29 minutes yesterday. The Seattle Seahawks had 3 points and 66 yards. And then they inexplicably went into not even a prevent. I don't know what you call dropping 10 in coverage and then still allowing a catch over the middle. Dropping 10 in coverage while Brooks stands up and just plays spy. I don't know what that is, but with a minute left, do that with 10 seconds left and against a Hail Mary, maybe. I still hate that. Rush 3 no matter what. Rush 3 in any passing situation, send at least 3 no matter what. I want that etched on my tombstone. Rush 3 no matter what. But they played a good game, and then you get backbreaking, and that's Raheem Morris's word, but a game-changing kickoff return. Okay, well, then the offense started driving again. Good for them. Their first possession, and then Bijan fumbles, and then they were done. They were absolutely done. Game over. Whole team quits. And, I think Ulbrich has done a good job with this defense. I think he has. But is he going to be the only one? If you clean house, is he going to be the only one that sticks around? And that's usually what people mean, Gear Trail. You don't necessarily get to pick and choose. If I'm going to go new GM, new head coach, new staff, it probably means even guys that you think have done a good job are going to be out, and they may want to be out. Honestly, they may want to leave. They may want a new start too. So that's where that comes in, Gear Trail. So I understand for sure. And appreciate the super. And Bryce comes back in after the super, doubles up. He says, can't catch the live for long today. He's hopeful next year. Talking about, what is there to be hopeful for next year? And, I said yesterday, and I'll repeat myself on it because I think it's important. I don't like to be hyperbolic. I said last year that Jimmy Lake's defense was the worst coach defense that at a high level, from like a high college level to the NFL, that I've really ever seen. A 2-4-5 prevent base defense in the NFL is just moronic. It's just moronic. And the team gave up on it and started leaking big plays too. It's just death by 1,000 cuts. You can't stop anybody. It's always 3rd and 1. It's 2nd and 2. It was just awful. And I said it's the worst. Well, what are the odds in back-to-back years you're going to have the worst defense and then the worst special teams unit we've ever seen at this level, especially with the Falcons? Again, I don't watch everybody. The worst special teams unit I've ever seen is Johns Creek High School. But that doesn't count. They're not playing with professionals. What are the odds that I can say that without being hyperbolic? But just because it sounds hyperbolic doesn't mean it's not true. Is this the worst special teams unit y'all can remember? It's the worst one I can remember, and it was the worst defense last year. Back-to-back units. Those are Raheem Morris hires. You had a chance, I think I put this in writing, and in the correction about the mistake I made about the kickoff return, I also put in there that Raheem Morris may not have the power to fire Marquise Williams. He may not. That wasn't corrected. I don't know. It's just weird. Marquise Williams was an Arthur Smith holdover. So you've got no ties there really to Raheem Morris. He was a holdover. Did a terrible job last year. And an even worse job. Whatever is 3 levels below terrible, that's where Atlanta Falcons special teams are in 2025. And he's still there. He's still there. And they and Mike says, and thank you for another super. Mike says, this reminds me of the Marion Campbell years. Yeah. And what I said as far as like the 8 losing seasons, the Marion Campbell years, it was a clown show. It was just a disaster. The difference right now is the Falcons are up against it with the salary cap. They've spent money. They were broke going into this year because they have maxed out their salary cap. They've wasted. When Kirk Cousins' $35 million in dead money hits the books next year, that will be 2022, 23, 24, 25, 26. In 5 years, they will have taken on almost $100 million in dead money at the quarterback position. They did it in 2022. They're going to do it again in 2026. That's $100 million just flushed down the drain. And what is dead money? Dead money is money that you have paid somebody via bonuses or guaranteed that you have paid them, paid, past tense, it's in their checking account, paid them, but they're not playing on your team anymore. So it counts against your cap. That's the simplest explanation of dead money. So paying almost $100 million to 2 quarterbacks who aren't even on your team.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Wouldn't it be amazing to have the ability to flush that much money down the drain? I'd just love to have the ability to flush that money down the drain and keep my job. I'd take that, let alone have the money, have a product that can afford to do that. But the difference here that I was getting back to this is the talent level and investment in the team and the facilities and everything from the Marion Campbell years in the 80s. The whole franchise was non-serious, I guess. And you could say that now, but you don't really understand what it was like in the 80s. I mean, look behind me. Mercedes-Benz is a masterpiece of a stadium and facilities. It's one of the best in the NFL. Arthur Blank will absolutely invest in this team, spends a lot of money to lose in this team. Those are two things that didn't ever happen in the 80s. And but when it comes to this team, for me, this is one of the most talented, underachieving teams that we've seen. We've seen bad football in Atlanta, a lot of it. But this team has the ability to be better than they are. Want to get back to the special teams. I got a couple of clips from yesterday about Raheem Morris and how turning to blaming the players, to me, is a big flag. Not a red flag like, oh no, that's bad, but a flag of I don't have anything to lose anymore. I know I'm in trouble. When these guys are failing me, I'm doing a good job. These guys are failing me. What do I have to lose? Like, they already quit. They're not going to quit on him. If I start calling out players, then they've already quit. They quit yesterday. So that is a signal to me that Raheem Morris is on his last days coming up. Might be like next 2 days, but it's 12-8, the last month, the last few games here. But when he was asked, I'm going to pull up both of these here real quick because I've got one for special teams, and I wrote this one up that Raheem Morris is blaming players for special teams woes. And when he was asked about, how can you fix it, this is what he had to say.
Go figure it out. We got to watch it. We got to put more people out there, change it up. Who's going, who's running down, who's covering, who's doing all the things that we asked those guys to do. You can't give up a block field goal. You can't do any of those things. So it's not just one person to point at. It's just not one thing to point at. You got to go figure it out and look at it on tape and try to come up with some answers.
Got to figure it out. Got to find a way. And you'll notice the more uncomfortable he is, the faster he speaks. Sorry, that just blew up. I didn't mean to get right up in your face like that. The faster he speaks, the more uncomfortable he is. Got to figure out who we're going to put out there, who's going to run out there, because it's not just one person, it's everybody. Well, when it's everybody, it's one person. And I actually put that in writing. When everything is going wrong, obviously it's the players and not who is actually the cook. Every meal is wrong. So So I wrote that one up yesterday, and he's blaming personnel on that one. And then I went back through it again today and asked about the 1 for 13 on third downs, which may have dropped them into last. I'll have to check. I think they were 30th coming in at 30.1. Someone else may have been so bad that they still may be out of last. But he was asked about the 1 for 13 on third downs, and this is what he had to say.
Make a catch. When Kurt puts it in position for a guy to make a catch on third down, you got to make those catches. We had a couple miss-ops from a number of people. Had a couple really good looks at it. Obviously they made some plays as well on their defense.
Got to make the catch. Had some really good looks. A lot of people screwed up. Man. Oh, it's a podcast and I'm speechless. I'm not speechless, but the problem is there's a lot of things I want to say where I want to get really mad and turn this into an R-rated podcast. I want to go back to the Eddie Murphy Raw days and start saying what I think about that. Because the problems when I watch this, there's drops. And to be fair, that one play early to Kyle Pitts, he's got one arm barred down by him, and he's got one he's trying to bring in with his hand, and Moose Johnston just gave him hell for that. I'm like, that was should the best tight end ever drafted make that catch? You'd hope. What's the percentage of that catch being made around the NFL? About 2%. One arm of the guy dragging down your other arm and trying to get that in there. I mean, that was a tough catch. Darnell Mooney's had his problems. David Sills doesn't get any separation on a 4th and 1, and they're running an opposite hash out to a guy that doesn't have the arm strength anymore. It's not the player. I mean, there are players. There's always players where you can get better. There's deficits. Again, I've already mentioned wide receiver. Corner's not deep enough. Defensive tackle's not deep enough. You were a little banged up at edge yesterday. There's always improvements you can make from personnel, from a 53-man roster. But the 53-man roster isn't why you got beat 37-9. The 53-man roster isn't why you're 4-9. That's coaching, y'all. That's coaching on there. Yes, Major says, imagine this team with Arthur Smith. If Arthur Smith was hired at the beginning of this year, I think things would be different. The problem is players can see the writing on the wall too. Arthur Smith had run his race. He bet big on Desmond Ridder and lost. When he lost the team. You could see by the end of the season, he lost the team. Once you lose the team, you are fired. It's a lot easier to replace the coaching staff than it is to replace a 53-man roster with guaranteed contracts and dead money and salary caps. I can blow money on coaches. But if Arthur Smith was coming in as a head coach with this team for the first time and everybody's all fired up for something new, they wouldn't be 4-9. They might not be 9-4, but they wouldn't be 4-9 with this team. His worst record was 7-10. And the 2022 team, I remember going through that. I picked 2022. I predicted that team to go 2-15, because they were so poor in the trenches, $100 million in dead money. They're playing with 50% of a squad. Looking back, I was like, they have like 4 average or better NFL players on their entire starting 22. They went 7-10. It was a really good job of coaching. And then the next year was a disaster. Thinking that Desmond Ridder was going to be the guy to lead this resurgence. They wouldn't be 4-9. They'd be better than they are now. I feel confident in that. And Mike with another super thank you, my friend. He says, Ulbrich and Morris should trade jobs. They might have to trade. Ulbrich might just get interim if they make a change. If they make a change, it will be Friday after an embarrassing loss and it wouldn't be Friday, but it would be this coming week after an embarrassing loss to the Buccaneers, and that's at Tampa. on a short week. So otherwise, it's going to be the final day of the season, Black Monday in January. That's where I think. But for me, that's the only reason. Why hasn't Raheem Morris been fired yet? I don't think that Arthur Blank's got the balls, for lack of a better word, to fire Raheem Morris in the middle of his second season. I think if and when he does it, it'll be at the end of the year. The only reason that might change is if you are seriously considering Jeff Ulbrich as a head coach. And if you were, Ulbrich should have been hired after the Miami game. That's when that move should have been made, is after the Miami game. But thank you very much, Mike. Just going back to the blaming of players again, what's your fear of, coaches blaming the players? One, it shows a lack of humility, lack of accountability, et cetera, et cetera. It sends a bad signal out there to fans. Two, the fear is, your players aren't going to play for you anymore. Well, that ship has sailed. And that was my big takeaway from watching and listening to Raheem Morris blame the players for the failings of the staff. And yes, players make mistakes. Yes, you're hoping they make a play. But 1 for 13 on third downs, there weren't 12 drops. The worst special teams unit out there, they were last and extended their lead in last place on kickoff returns. They had, you got your opposing coach in the locker room predicting a kickoff return for a touchdown to open the third quarter, and he's right. Zane Gonzalez's first field goal was damn near blocked coming from his right side. It was blocked on the left one. All this is predictable. The only unit I feel like that's done a pretty good job is basically short punts. Bradley Pinion has done a good job of pinning people inside between like the 5 and the 15. That's about it. That's the only one I think that's done a decent job out there. So going back, that's what it means to me is the signaling of it's the end is coming. We worry, will Arthur Blank do the right thing? Will he wait too long? I think it's coming. I really do. So let's go back through here, and I want to get to we handle my super chatters first, of course. Hope you all understand that. They're super chatters. But I want to go through some of the comments here. We need Signetti here in Atlanta. I don't think that's going to happen. Matt Sinus says you can't count your Falcons before they hatch. Floyd, good to see you. Austin says, will today be the day that Raheem fires Williams? No. 1, not on a short week. 2, they might just strip him of powers. Like, listen, go sit in the dunce corner and put on your headphones and clap your hands on Sundays, Thursdays, on game days. If you didn't fire Jimmy Lake, you're not firing Maurice Williams. Remember, that's not our code. That's not our ethics. That's not what we do. Unless they're talking bad about us, then we'll fire Ike Hilliard after 3 games. And we'll cut Ray and bench Casey Washington. I don't know why Casey Washington can't see a snap. Again, David Sills, no offense to him, but he's been a practice squad player his entire career. He had, how many catches did I say coming in? 13. He had 13 catches in 4 years as a professional coming into this year. He played 60 snaps yesterday, 0 catches on 4 targets, and he's got 8 catches for 65 yards this season. Why? Put another tight end out there. Go big package again. If he's not a receiving threat, then he's out there to be a blocker. He's not fast enough to be a decoy. I don't understand. I really don't. John, thanks for being a member, John. He says, I was hoping I'd wake up to some good news. No, if it happens, it would happen, middle of the afternoon. I don't think it would be like 7 a.m. So again, I don't expect, and again, I'm a cynic. I've earned it. I'm 50-something years old, and I've been an Atlanta sports fan who was born in Cleveland. That's cynical. I was in Atlanta when, the drive and the fumble happened in back-to-back years. One of my first memories of any season was the Falcons blowing a 14-point lead to the Cowboys after 1980 with a really good team. We can talk about the Braves, the Hawks. It's been tough. I'm cynical for a reason. I've earned it. Talking about here, and Halsey comes in, he's not quite the person I was talking about defending Raheem. He says, but I don't get why some people are in such a hurry to see firings, as if the Falcons will start being a good NFL team if they just fire more people. And I don't know. Again, I don't always have. That's why I like the comment section after the fact. I don't always say exactly what I mean when I'm on here. It doesn't come to me, with the time. So I don't know if you're saying that, you think that they're not going to make a good hire anyway, so why bother firing? Dude, this is bad. The team has given up on them. They are seriously underachieving, and the team's going in the wrong direction. Why wouldn't you make a change? And some of the arguments are, well, if Rich McKay and Arthur Blank are going to just do the hiring, then it doesn't really matter. That's no reason to stay in a toxic relationship. Maybe you get lucky and make a spectacular hire, and they can sit up there and gloat about, hey, we've been pretty good about all of our head coaching hires. What are we, 4 for 5? Ha, ha, ha. Nudge, nudge. God, that was just sickening, wasn't it, last year? And at the beginning of 2024, so technically last year, as they were at the Arthur Smith firing press conference. But I don't think anybody's in a hurry. I mean, if this was soccer, Raheem wouldn't have made it through last year. You want to see a hurry, watch international soccer. You lose 4 games in a row, you're canned. That's a hurry. Why? What has anybody seen here that thinks that these guys should get more time? Have you seen development? Have you seen improvement? Are there any encouraging signs at all? Then why? Why wouldn't you? They're just getting older doesn't make you get better. It's only going to get worse. Right now, the arrow's heading the wrong direction. Big time. I mean, it's not just like, oh, it's a steady slide. It's straight down. Why wouldn't you make a change? So I guess that would be my answer. Is this team is completely headed in the wrong direction. They have woefully underachieved. The team has given up on them. They look inept in the very basic aspects of this game and clock management, special teams. It was a bad hire. Get out of a bad relationship. Get out of a bad relationship. I can't tell you, if you've ever had to make a decision to get out of a bad relationship, whether it be personal or professional, why didn't I leave this job sooner? Or why, I'm thinking about leaving this job. Maybe I should. Or if you're in the process and you've got somebody working for you, I should fire this person. You don't do it. You don't want the conflict. Or, you need to cut somebody out of your life. You're in a bad relationship. I swear to God, 99 out of 100 times, once you finally get up the guts to do it and do it, your reaction is almost universally, oh, why did I wait so long? Why did I torture myself on this? Get it done. There's just no reason to do it. Robert has a question. He says, who would the Falcons hire? Mike McCarthy? He's somebody that's, that's out there, and his floor with the Dallas Cowboys is higher than the Falcons ceiling has been in a decade. So that's something to think about. He's done it. He's an offensive guy. How badly did he underachieve with the Cowboys? I don't really know. I feel like there's not a whole lot of difference between how Arthur Blank and Jerry Jones run the teams. They're both a little too meddling. I don't think Arthur Blank meddles quite as much as Jerry Jones, but Jerry Jones has the premier sports franchise in the United States of America and hasn't quite hit the lows that the Dallas Cowboys, that the Atlanta Falcons have. But it'd be like taking the Lakers and not winning a championship for 30 years. Everybody wins with the Lakers. It just happens. It'd be like taking the Lakers, taking the Cowboys and not winning a championship for 30 years is criminally negligent on that. But let's see here. Some of the other people that Diana Rossini put out there as candidates: Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, 49ers DC Robert Saleh. Maybe he's better than what he was able to show in New York. They're a disaster of a franchise too. Colts DC Lou Anarumo, Broncos defensive coordinator and former head coach Vance Joseph, Dolphins DC Anthony Weaver, Seahawks OC Clint Kubiak, ding ding ding, there's my guy. Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula, Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, Packers DC Jeff Hafley, Bills OC Joe Brady, and Jags DC Anthony Campanile. Those are the guys that she thinks will be on the interview circuit for head coaching this year. And for me, Clint Kubiak is probably my number one choice out of that bunch. Evan says, I don't understand how this is any different than than Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn they're very similar. They're both, we've asked this question and the answer I got, I won't give it away. But, I kind of asked, why does it seem like all the best head coaches are arrogant a-holes? Were they really good and became that way as, the winning and the money and the adoration corrupts them and they become arrogant a-holes? Or was it this driven, maniacal, sense that they already had, they're already like that, and that's what you need to really be successful? It's like, who's been the yay jolly guy that has really been a successful head coach? When you think of the most successful head coaches in the history of this game, they've all been tyrannical for the most part. The answer, for the exception that proves the rule, someone said Pete Carroll. And I'm like, I'll give you that one. Pete Carroll was good. Pete Carroll is a super high energy defensive guy, uber positive, and has had a lot of success at every level he's coached at. So that was the answer. But otherwise, there's a lot of similarities between Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris. They're both, no pun intended here, but rah-rah guys. They're both good motivators. They're both good guys to have on staff. They're both, I think Dan Quinn's probably a better defensive coordinator than what Raheem Morris has proven, but they are very, very similar, and neither one of them seem to be able to help the offense and or other aspects of the game when things go wrong, and that's bad. That's bad. So I think it's very similar out there. One big difference with Dan Quinn, look at his staff, is who he's hired. You make a mistake in your hiring and hand a number one offense coming off of a Super Bowl to a college guy who has been a disgraced on several levels for several reasons. Hand him the keys to the number one offense when he's never called plays in the NFL before, and Steve Sarkisian, and it tanks your career. You're fired, 18 months later. Actually, it's 2 years later. He was hired in 2017, 18. They fired Sarkisian after 18, and Dan Quinn hung on. So, but that was the turning point in Dan Quinn's career, a bad hire. Well, Raheem Morris started with 3 bad hires: Jimmy Lake, Marquise Williams, Zach Robinson. So this is more like 2018 Dan Quinn. Evan, that's about the difference. Is Dan Quinn did a better job of hiring coaches early. That 2016 staff, people look back at it and say, this staff was epic. It was a good staff for sure. And Mike says, NFL stands for not for long. That was what Jerry Glanville said. He says, not for long, I'll be bagging groceries. They're paid to win. It's a zero-sum game. Yeah, when they're making the kind of money they are, patience and loyalty went out the window. And again, I like the phrase. I've said to y'all before, people get really, really emotionally attached to these coaches and players because they're wearing their uniform. And I try and tell you, don't. One, they're going to be fired, because people come at me all off season. The people after the Kirk Cousins, my take on Kirk Cousins made a lot of everything is awesome fans mad on how dumb it was to sign him to $100 million and then draft a bunch of guys that you weren't going to play. That was just moronic. I'm not going to change how I am, but the everything is awesome crowd, wants to believe. I'm like, man, I'd love to be a fan of a team that never makes mistakes. They're going to be gone. And I heard someone, Ted Lasso said it, the show, one of the phrases he uses, he goes, this is their team, talking about the fans. This is their team. We're just borrowing it for a little while. And that's the truth. All this back here, the Atlanta Falcons, y'all will be here in 20 years. Nobody else will. Nobody else. None of these other people that are out there now will. Raheem Morris won't be. So it's okay to be critical of guys who are doing a job. He's here because he's getting paid. You're actually paying money for this. You're a fan. You're a supporter. This is your team, y'all. And Hunter coming in. Appreciate the super chat, Hunter. He says, trade Bijan for 2 firsts. You couldn't. Sign Drake London long-term. You need resources, picks, etc. This team has no window right now. I disagree, and let's get into this just a little bit. One, I don't think you get 2 firsts for a running back. I don't think that's going to happen. Christian McCaffrey went for a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th, which is basically the equivalent of 1 first. And Christian McCaffrey was who Bijan Robinson is. So I don't think you get 2 firsts for him. I think you probably could get a first, but I don't think you get 2 firsts. And then Drake, you got to wonder. I expect this to be one of the first moves we hear before free agency. So somewhere between January and March 15th, you announce the Drake London extension. If he gets into the summer and if he starts playing on his 5th-year option with no extension, if he gets into June with no extension, that's a red flag. It shouldn't even be that long, honestly. If he gets through, if it's when's the draft? Let's just say April 30th, okay? If it's April 15th and Drake London hasn't signed an extension, he's trade bait. It means he doesn't really want to, or they can't come to terms, or it's going to be contentious. Then he's trade bait, and he'd be worth 2 firsts. Sauce Gardner can go for 2 firsts. Drake London goes for 2 firsts. But as far as this team has no window right now, all right. If this team had an average special teams unit, they'd be at worst 7-6. Okay. I think the special teams have lost at least 3 games for this team. At worst 7-6. Even competency at their biggest problems. Again, special teams are pretty homogenous. You know, you might get a special return man, or your kicker is percentage points better than that kicker. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to small margins, the difference between 2nd best and 18th. The Falcons are so far down here that their special teams are losing them multiple games. That doesn't happen in the NFL. That leads you to believe that this could be turned around pretty quickly with even competency at special teams. So I think there is a window there. The question, though, and Hunter, you might not have said this. I'll try and go through all the options while we're talking about this. Quarterback. Maybe, the quarterback is a big question mark next year. 1, is Michael Penix going to be healthy for the start of the season? And 2, is he going to be good? This year he wasn't. And again, for me, the quarterback play, I usually put that as one phrase. Quarterback play is a collective. It's not just, Michael Penix sucks. No, Michael Penix isn't playing well. Those are 2 different things. 2 very different things. We don't know if he sucks because the collective around Michael Penix sucks. That one I'm sure of. The wide receiver room is a disaster. Zach Robinson has regressed in a big way from last year to this year. The hand-holding of not letting him go behind center and maximizing what he can do is mind-numbing. Well, they're afraid of him getting injured. Then why'd you draft him? That's insane. Those are fireable offenses. But this team is 10 plays away from having a winning record. Everybody can say that, Scott. No, not really. Not really. We've seen this team dominate, and I could pick out probably 4 losses that they have dominated statistically and lost. Even flip 2 of those around, and you're looking at 6 and 7, and you're in a playoff race in the NFC South. So I'm with you. A new general manager comes in, they might look and try and pick up more resources, more draft picks, etc. They might, by trading away some of these players. Wouldn't be the best way to endear yourself to the fans who are already pretty cynical moving Drake London and or Bijan Robinson. Jesse Bates, yes. Jesse Bates is, what is Jesse's, and it's not just a big number, because that I like to put context in here. Jesse Bates' number next year on the cap is, let's see, for 2026, where he'd be entering the final year of his contract. His cap hit is scheduled to be $25 million with a dead cap of 18.3, which means if you just cut him, you could save $6 million. Well, Well, $25 million, actually 24.8. $24.8 million. Well, what's that mean? Well, let me hit cap hit on safety for 2026. I'm over on Spot Rack here. If I hit cap hit for safety in 2026, he is number 2. He is the number 2, and he's one of 4 guys that are over $20 million. If I go down to the 10th highest paid safety in the NFL, it's half. So it's a huge premium. Well, Scott, and let's just say Jesse Bates has been playing at an all-pro level again. It's still, in essence, a premium, a luxury position, a safety. It's a non-premium position for a reason. So the Falcons are spending a ton of money on non-premium positions, and it shows. The resources they've put in at tight end and running back, we know, 2 top 10 picks. Those are non-premium positions. They got $25 million at safety. They've got 20-something million dollars at guard in Lindstrom. Those are good players, but those are your non-premium positions, and now you're having to go cheaper on your premium positions. They've corrected that in the draft the last couple of years. Quarterback, edge, wide receiver have been 4 of the latest first-round picks, and then defensive players, defensive linemen in the second round. They've attempted to correct that, but is it too late? Is it too late for Fontenot to realize, oh, man, maybe I shouldn't put half of my salary cap and top 10 picks into non-premium positions when wide receiver isn't good and offensive tackle is shaky? My edge room was bad. Yeah, you addressed it in your 5th draft. Defensive tackle, offensive tackle, wide receiver, edge, cornerback. The last day 1 or day 2 cornerback drafted by the Atlanta Falcons was A.J. Terrell. So this team is not 4-9 bad. Again, I ask you, is the 53-man roster why this team is 4-9? I don't think it is. I might be wrong. Again, this is a debate. If you think this team on paper, if you think this 53-man roster is better than 4-9, then they have a window. Then it can be corrected. There can be a quicker turnaround.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Jay Kelly is now playing only on Netflix.
Everyone wants the Emirates NBA Cup.
And things are heating up.
30 teams started. Bang! But only 8 have advanced to the single elimination knockout rounds. To survive, they'll have to be hungry, relentless, ruthless.
Are you kidding me?
They all want the cup, but only one team can claim it. Who will capture the cup? Emirates NBA Cup knockout rounds begin December 9th on Prime.
So that's what I think on that one, and I appreciate the comment and the support and all of that, Hunter. Gert Van Riggen, when it strings everything together, he's coming from out of country. I can tell by the Euro symbol right here. And thank you so much, my friend. That's big time coming in. And I like doing these morning shows because it comes in the afternoon for some of our out of country. Where are you coming in from? Are you Sweden, Norway, Germany, somewhere up there in that neighborhood with that name? Denmark. But he says trade Jesse Bates for Mac Jones. That would be a big salary cap hit. You might have to eat some money on that one. But he says Penix and Jones are on the same level right now. Let them battle it out. Have some competition. Penix wins, cool, last chance. Jones wins, hope for a Sam Darnold-like season. And it feels like in the last 3 years, we've had that quarterback, whether it be Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. This year, I think it was Daniel Jones right up until he broke his leg and then tore his Achilles. That sucks for him, by the way. I mean, he's made a lot of money and he'll be okay, but he's faced some adversity playing in New York and was starting to, was having a really good season before injuries started taking their toll on him in Indianapolis. And they've fallen off a cliff. Watch out for the Texans. Got a little bit of a man crush on DeMeco Ryans. and the team that he's put together and the way they play the game. Watch out for the Houston Texans. What'd they start off? 0-3. They're 8-5 now. You want to talk about going the right direction? But Mac Jones, there'll be guys out there that are like that. Trey Lance, you want to bring him in? They'll have to do something for sure. They'll probably need to bring, if they want to have Easton Stick as a number 3, maybe, but let's just assume not. Bring in a guy like Trey Lance and Mac Jones might be nice, to have somebody like that to have your quarterback room. Mac Jones is a veteran at this point. He's been in the league for next year will be his 6th year also, because he was in the same class as, if I'm not mistaken, was he in the same class as Kyle Pitts? Was that 2021? I think so, because it was Zach Wilson was in that class and he went number 2, and then Trey Lance went number 3. And there was big talk about Shanahan trading 3 first-round picks for Mac Jones at number 3. Instead, he wasted 3 first-round draft picks. That's just crazy that you can be so good at building a team that you can just completely flush 3 first-round draft picks down the window and still be one of the premier teams in the NFC. What's that like? What's that like? I don't know, but it must be fun, at least fun for a little while. But yeah, the Falcons will be in the quarterback market for sure, because it's not going to be Kirk Cousins. He's not going to take less money to do it. And they're going to have to cut him. They're not going to restructure. And I don't think he's enjoyed his time in Atlanta where he's like, oh yeah, I really believe in this franchise. And they've been so upfront and honest with me ever since the beginning. And now Kirk Cousins is gone. So you're going to need 2 quarterbacks to come in and Mac's a veteran at this point. And then, but he's got another year under his contract. I think, Jarrett Stidham might be a free agent out in Denver. He'll be in that $7 to $8 million range. He's got a couple starts under his belt. Davis Mills has become very valuable at Houston after being able to hold on to things next year, but he's got another year on his contract too. Just some of the guys to look for. Competition and depth. Yeah. I mean, I think you're not going to bring in a high dollar free agent. One, it's really hard to do. They're not available very often. And if they are, they're super flawed. And 2, you don't have a first round draft pick. So you're not bringing in a high investment quarterback to compete with Michael Penix, but that doesn't mean you can't bring in some talent with some upside, low cost, low reward. Low risk, higher reward type of guy. So appreciate the support. I want to check back in, see if you answered, see with where you're from. So, and I think, talk about San Francisco. So what's amazing, it doesn't seem like they've even been punished for lighting 3 firsts on fire. It is. It is absolutely amazing. And people are talking about Jameis Winston. Listen, if you're bringing in Jameis, it's to be the backup, and you could do worse. You could do worse than Jameis Winston as a backup quarterback. The Falcons are doing worse this year than Jameis Winston. I'd rather have Jameis Winston on $10 million than Kirk Cousins on 40. That's his cap hit this year. It'll be 35 next year. So you've already got $35 million allocated to Kirk Cousins for next year in dead money that you've already paid him, because you paid him $100 million for over 2 years, and which is basically 3 years because you've moved out his contracts to year 3 and 4. When you cut him, it accelerates. If I'm a new GM, I probably want to take that entire $35 million dead cap hit next year. I'd rather have Jameis Winston for $10 million than Kirk Cousins for 40, because they're both backups. And if they're both playing, then I probably am not going anywhere. And I've got $30 million extra dollars to spend on the rest of my team. I could go get another guard, an offensive tackle. I could get a wide receiver that has done more than play on practice squads. I could do all those. I could get another cornerback. Could do all those things with $30 million. So that's where I would go. I think you could do worse. Russ, he says Winston has 1 more year on his contract with the Giants. I can see Gardner Minshew in our offense as a backup. Yeah, that was who I said when I was looking through there, Russ. I think Gardner's in Kansas City this year that he signed, so he's getting a year under Andy Reid. And when he came in and had a chance to play for the Colts, he played well enough, and he's on like $1.5 million. I'd rather have Russ for $1.5 million than I'd rather have Kirk Cousins for $40 million. That's basically how I feel about all that stuff. And John, coming in, it says, let's find a starter first. A quarterback, we're talking. You've got one. It's going to be Michael Penix again. Otherwise, How do you plan on doing that? I'm all ears. How do you plan on who is your idea to bring in a starter as far as, and it might end up being the starter. That's the point. You want to bring in somebody that's got the capability to start, but it's not going to be a high investment player because you don't have the money to invest highly and you don't have a first round pick. So you're not going to make a high investment offseason acquisition at quarterback. You're not. Your high investment your high investment quarterback is your number 8 overall pick in Michael Penix. He will be the guy in 2026 unless he just flat out can't play, and then that next season is lost. Jerome, good to see you. He says Clint Kubiak impressed Arthur Blank yesterday, hopefully. Mike McDonald raved about him yesterday after the game, said he called a really good game, really believe in this coaching staff, making adjustments at halftime, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know why we haven't heard more about Clint Kubiak, honestly. When I see the top candidates, he should be number 1 on the list. And why isn't he? What's going on? Why isn't this guy the number 1 candidate on lists? He's got the lineage, people love last names. And he's young. That's okay. Inexperienced. Well, shoot, Joe Brady was getting head coaching interviews after fetching coffee for Sean Payton. Come on now. Dirty Bird. So honestly, we haven't been right since the Super Bowl debacle, the Matt Ryan debacle, hiring the wrong head coaches, tear it all down and start over. No, you're right. And those are January of 2017 is a franchise changing moment. 2017, if they could have even moved on, God, they were so close in 2017. And then they made the mistake of thinking they still had a window there instead of, listen, we need to start over. That's when it really should have happened. But there's a couple of these that stick out in your mind as an Irishman with a memory and that can hold a grudge. 1996, Mark Wohlers hanging a slider to Jim Leyritz. The Braves didn't win another World Series game for almost 20 years. It's probably at least 20 years. 1996 to 25 years, actually. Didn't win another World Series game for 25 years. That was a franchise-defining moment. And y'all remember the Cliff Livingston baby skyhook in Game 6 against the Celtics? What was that, 86, 87? As the Hawks were a really good team, but just could never quite get over the Celtics hump, get over the Pistons hump, and then nobody got over the Jordan hump once he won it. So a couple of moments like that feels like they're defining. But again, you see those in a game, and a team that has metal, M-E-T-T-L-E or E-L, metal, and mental toughness can overcome those type of things. There's other teams have had maybe not a 28-3 on Super Bowl, but other teams have had bad moments, and they come back and win. Winners win. I mentioned the Cowboys. Going 30 years without a Super Bowl championship in Dallas is criminal. That's nuts. Let me see here. Talking back to Gert here on saying, where could they go with this? Houston should call for Bijan. They have 2 second-round picks next year, this coming year. Why not just sign Tyler Algier? Keep my picks. 2 seconds for Bijan. Would you say yes? I might say no to that. I mean, this guy is, he's the face of your franchise right now. Bijan is. It's not Michael Penix. Drake's kind of, I don't know, Drake touches the ball enough. Drake could be. Jalen Walker could be the face of your franchise, but Bijan's the face of your franchise right now. And that still matters. I know it feels like the fans don't matter sometimes, and you get treated as an accessory, as a nuisance. Oh, the fans are unhappy. Well, what do they matter? Yeah. The fans are the reason why this is a multi-billion, $billion, probably $1 trillion industry, the NFL. It still matters. So Houston should call for, anybody should call for Bijan. I mean, if you're not Detroit, who else? Detroit's got 2 backs. Who else? The Raiders, they just used a top 10 pick on a running back when, God, they didn't have any. That was crazy. Again, to me, the Raiders using a top 10 pick on a running back is the equivalent of the Falcons in 2021 using a top 5 pick on a tight end. It's just backwards, man. It's just backwards. It's backwards team building. And there's a reason why The Falcons stay the Falcons. The Raiders stay the Raiders. And these other teams that always win always seem to find a way to win. Despite all of the things put in place, salary caps, roster limits, reverse draft orders, despite trying to punish success and reward losing in the NFL, the winners seem to keep winning on that one. Let me take a hit on this. My voice is about to give out after back-to-back pods today. And then we're just going to get back out of here. Maurice, appreciate you being a member and the super chat. And if you're not a member, be like Maurice. Hit that join button that's in the description or on YouTube, and become a member. We're doing more and more stuff for members only as membership grows. Maurice, but he says Atlanta sports, man. It's like I said, I've earned it. I'm not just an Atlanta sports fan. I moved here when I was 5. But all my extended family is from a Cleveland suburb. So I grew up. My 80s were rooted for Cleveland teams and Atlanta teams. It was rough. Remember, that was the drive and the fumble in the AFC Championship games to the Broncos and John Elway for them. It was bad, man. It was tough. And Mad Scientist says, again, facts. If they trade Bijan, I'm done. And I had their logo tattooed on me. I've been watching for 40 years. Yeah, you just can't. There still has to be some connection. We've seen it happen. Who are some of the icons that have been moved? You moved on from Matt Ryan, but he lost a lot of his support in the city after, a really great run. He's come to the end of it and the team was going downhill. I was pretty damn pissed when Lenny Wilkens traded Dominique Wilkins. I'll tell you that. I was hot. I was really pissed when John Sherholtz traded Marquise Grissom and David Justice to the Cleveland Indians before the 1997 season, after 1996. Really pissed about that. David Justice was kind of the face of that team, but not really. He was a popular, high-profile player, but not necessarily the face of the team. Dominique was absolutely the Hawks franchise. It's happened, but those are guys that are towards the back end of their career, not Bijan Robinson, who's in year 4 and is the face of this franchise and is one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. You can't make that move unless I can come to y'all and say, guys, I'm new here. I understand you're upset, but they gave us 2 first-round draft picks and this player who we really need. It was a move I really couldn't say no to when we wished Bijan Robinson the best. I've got his jersey. My daughter has his jersey. I understand. But this was a move we thought was best for the Atlanta Falcons. It would have to be a move like that where you're like, oh, yeah, okay. They overspent so much because they think they're in their Super Bowl window and they sent us 2 first-round picks and a 3rd. All right, I get it. I understand. Oh, and by the way, Bijan, we offered him a contract extension and he turned it down. Those are all the kind of things. John says, you guys should get Raheem Morris tattoos. It's gonna say find a way. Barbecue sauce. Instead of Ted Lasso, I'm gonna get find a way. I don't have any tattoos. I've always said there's the only 2 things that I've ever said that I would want on my body forever are now my kids' names. That's it. Everything else I'm loyal, obviously, I'm loyal. But I'm not into that permanent thing, man, forever. I tell my kids, tattoos are such a fad. I'm like, listen, you're thinking about tattoos, think about what they would look like on your mom and on me. And if you think that would look cool, then okay, but you're still going to wait till you're 25 years old. Otherwise, I'm going to break your arm. 90s, the Hawks, Braves, and Falcons were good. The Falcons were up and down in the 90s. The Braves obviously turned the corner in 91. The Hawks were good the 80s and 90s, and then 98 hit, and the owners locked out. The NBA owners locked out all the teams, and I boycotted. I said, the greedy bastards, you're locking out these players because you can't control your spending and you want to make more. I was pissed. I boycotted the 98 season, and then I don't think the Hawks ever came back. I don't think the Hawks ever came back from the 98 season because in the 2000s decade that followed, I think they had more losses than any team in basketball. And that was me turning, 99, I would have been 26. So I basically did my 30s in the aughts and, life changes. I moved and all that type of stuff. So I really haven't watched basketball since the mid 90s. Watched NBA on that one. let me see. And Mad Scientist says it takes somewhere between 25 to 30 million to replace the production we get out of Bijan Robinson with a different running back and a different wide receiver. We'd be idiots to trade Robinson. Yeah, again, and relatively speaking, he wouldn't be all that expensive. Let's look at, if I look at cap hits or average salary rankings for 2025, and I look at cap hits for running back. Number 1, Alvin Kamara, and that'll be changed. He's a Saint, is 18. So let's just even wipe him off the board because that won't last. The number 1 salary cap hit for running back in 2026 is Jonathan Taylor at $15.5 million. And the number 1 at wide receiver is Tyreek Hill. So this one won't stay this way. It's $52 million. It's more than 3x. Justin Jefferson at 39, CeeDee Lamb at 38 and change, Chris Godwin at 30, 36 and change, 33, 31, 30. So it's double the money on that. The bigger question for running backs isn't necessarily the money because they're relatively cheap for how much production they give you. It's their effectiveness. And that's why I say at this point, I want to see Bijan Robinson in bubble wrap. I don't need to see Bijan Robinson. I love watching him play, but if he were to come up with a injury that sat him down for the next 4 games and we wrap him in bubble wrap and let Tyler Algier showcase himself for free agency and maybe up your comp pick game when he signs somewhere else, yes please. I'm going to go, if Bijan Robinson, I don't even want to say it. I'm so superstitious about this stuff. I don't even want to say it. If he gets hurt in the next 4 games, I am going to go absolutely nuclear. That's how I feel about Bijan Robinson right now. The season's lost. Protect him. There's limited shelf life on a running back. Don't waste 100 touches over the next month. Let Tyler, who's rested, let him carry a bigger load. I want 10 touches. I don't want to see Bijan Robinson the rest of the year. Is basically what it boils down to. And John says they're all overpaid. Well, that's our fault. Whenever you get mad about how much money that they're making in sports, remember one, if they didn't have it, they wouldn't pay it. So there's money to be had. I just assume it goes to the players because the owners are making billions and billions and billions of dollars in a monopoly. And 2, the reason why there's so much money is because of us, the consumers. So we watch, which drives advertising dollars, which drives subscription fees, cable rates, et cetera, et cetera. So the money is there because of us. So if the money's there, I just assume to go to the players. And the money is there because of us. So if you're ever mad about how much money that they're making, you got to look in the mirror. That's just the way it is. And I have stopped watching stuff because of things like this, because I don't watch the NBA anymore. I've turned off different things. I understand. You got to understand it. It's a business and they have a lot of customers. And Mitchell comes in, and this is just about going to wrap it up for us. And I'm going to get the Master Chef before we get out of here. Don't pay Pitts. No. He's going to make more money than I expected because tight ends have gotten paid a little bit more than I expected. And he's probably a 10 to 12 tight end in the NFL right now, and 10 to 12 in the NFL right now is between 10 and 12 million dollars. So I can see Pitts getting a 3-year, $40 million contract with 25 guaranteed next year. 25 guaranteed, which basically is a 2-year, $12.5 million per season contract with a club option that you either cut, renegotiate, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to pay that to Kyle Pitts. I think he's unreliable as a football player. I think he's unreliable. The coach, you'll hear the phrase trust a lot. I don't trust that I'm going to get the best effort from Kyle Pitts down to down, game to game. I don't trust that. I don't want him out there. I don't want a guy that I can trust that I don't know that I'm going to get his team on there. So I'll get his best out there. So I think Kyle Pitts, we're on the final countdown of Kyle Pitts. 4 games left, 4 more games of Kyle Pitts in a Falcons uniform. And hopefully he signs a nice contract and the Falcons can get maybe an early day 3 pick out of it. Maybe they get a 4th or 5th round pick out of it in the comp game. It just depends on how it goes. Let me see. I wanted to go to the Master Chef. I've been saying Raheem is like a restaurant GM. Appreciate you coming in. The servers need a good FOH manager. That's your offensive coordinator. And the kitchen has a decent kitchen manager. The GM simply needs a new FOH. I'm not even sure what FOH means. Manager to run the restaurant. Floor. I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, the guy in charge. And again, going back to the beginning of the podcast, when you start blaming your servers and your cooks and everything for a crappy restaurant, when everything is bad, look in the mirror. If everything's going wrong, maybe something's wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And, why do you think it's going to get better if you just make a change? Because it's not going to get, it could get worse. I mean, they're 4-9. It could be, they could be the Tennessee Titans. It could get worse. But I know it's not going to get better the direction they're heading now. I know that for sure. So if I know for sure it's not going to get better, don't I take the chance that it will get better? Shouldn't I try to get better? See, otherwise you're looking at the Falcons of the 80s. They didn't care. Falcons of the 80s, they didn't care if they got better or not. Arthur Blank cares. He's failed at it, but he cares. I have no doubt in my mind about that he wants to be better. He wants to put a good product out there. He's just failed. At least he's trying. That's a start. FOH manager. I haven't heard that one, but thank you. Thank you, Rusty. Let's see, on front of house. I believe that one. Yeah. On that. No, that's good for any business, and that's customer service, that's marketing, et cetera, et cetera. On that note, I want to say thank you to my Super Chat superstars as I'm going to get out of here. Mike coming in several times. The Bryce is wrong coming in twice. Gear Trail coming in. Mike Harvey, I said, came in a couple times, so I'm showing him again. Yes, Major. Evan, I made sure I did get Evan. I remember talking about that. So thank you, Evan. Hunter, also another great comment. Gert, appreciate you coming in from across the pond. And obviously, Maurice coming in. Be like Maurice. Try becoming a member. See if it's worth it. Cancel if you don't think it's worth it, but give it a shot. Help support the team. Mad Scientist says front of house. Thank you. And I've said everybody should work as a server for at least 3 months. There's 3 things, and I'm going to get out of here. A little philosophy from Scott Kennedy here. Everybody in this country should work 2 of 3 jobs for at least a couple of months. Be a waiter/server for 3 months. Referee youth sports. Coach youth sports. You do 2 of those 3. Actually, for me, it's really be a server and then one of the other 2. And this would be a more productive, kinder, more compassionate. What's the word I'm looking for? When I considerate. I think that's the big one. Considerate country. If everybody did those things just for a little while, because those are tough jobs and it really puts you face to face with the worst of humanity. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. And Red says, I don't necessarily think military, not everybody needs to be military, but my voice is about gone. Everybody could use more consideration for other people. Everybody needs that. And it's hard. Being a server is, you really understand how other people are treating you. And once you go through that, maybe you'll be kinder to other people, empathetic. Yep. All those things. On that note, we got Deep Thoughts Falcons podcast. We're at 70 minutes. What do you want to say? But thank y'all for being here. I will be back here on Wednesday with Nick. On Wednesday, if nothing changes before that, we might look at Tampa Bay, but does it really matter at this point? I want to start looking at some free agents. I want to delve a little bit deeper into the coaching candidates, and then we'll run a mock draft on Wednesday on those 3. So that's what I want to do on Wednesday. Hope to see y'all there. I'm glad y'all were here with me today. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Thanks for being here, y'all.